And as we sit here now on December 12th, I think Simone should be doing this as well. Our very own Simone Eli, talking about this Vanderbilt team. Now that all the hay's in the barn, so to speak, Julian's the one that said it on the front end. Like, hey, this schedule is daunting, but this is a team that actually believes that they can do it. This and there's coach. Now we know that Vandy's headed to the ReliaQuest Bowl. It's the first time talking to you, I think, since the season ended. Now that the season's all over, now they're preparing for this bowl. Can you put a bow on what you saw here in 2025 and all the fun that came with it?
Yeah, if I were to give a grade, it would be an A. You not only have the best player in program history is one of the 4 Heisman finalists, but you had your best season in program history, first 10-win season in program history. Of course, they would love to be in the college football playoff discussion, and we've talked about that on this show. Brand recognition is everything, and obviously Vanderbilt had their chances against Texas and Alabama that they could not pass, but I still think a season certainly to keep their heads high. Obviously, you not only were able to get a postseason opportunity at the ReliaQuest Bowl, which should be a good game against Iowa, but you were able to springboard into next season and prove that this is not a fluke. The big question was, of course, what they're going to do after Diego Pavia is gone, and they were able to get arguably the best one in the country in Gerhard Curtis and flip him from Georgia. And so you are set for years to come on top of Clark Lee signing that extension as well. And so Vanderbilt's arrived, and I think that was the big thing going into this season, no matter what the end of the outcome was going to be, is proving that last year wasn't a fluke, continuing to build, and hoping to be a mainstay at the top of the SEC for years to come.
Julian, let's talk about this weekend because, as you mentioned, Diego Pavia is a Heisman finalist, and it will be revealed tomorrow night. When we talked with your sports director, Corey Curtis, on Monday, he believes that Diego Pavia is going to get the most first-place votes but will not actually win the Heisman. I wanted to get your take on if you think he could actually win the Heisman.
I certainly think there is a chance, but I'll probably echo his sentiment a little bit, Corey's sentiment, in the sense that for as many people that there are that love Diego Pavia and what he brings to college football, there's also a sector of the fan base of college sports that maybe are turned off by him when it comes to how polarizing he is, how confident or cocky, I guess you could say, he is, depending on where you fall on that side of the fence. So I certainly could see him winning it, and I wouldn't be surprised. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if he, was second or third on that list either. Look, I'm not a Heisman voter, but if I had a vote, it would go to him. And taking aside from the fact that I cover this guy and covered this team for the last year plus, there is nobody on that list of Heisman finalists who've had to do more with less than him.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, look at the kind of season that they've had and the season that Pavia has put together just to even be in the conversation of a playoff picture, and they still didn't get in. If I'll say this, if he was the quarterback of Ohio State or Notre Dame or Indiana, they'd probably have an equivalent or even maybe a better season.
Yeah.
If you put Mendoza or Sayin on Vanderbilt, are they having the best season in program history? You'd have to really convince me otherwise, because I don't think that's the case. So not only do I think Pavia is the best player in college football just because of what he has to do week in and week out, I think he's also the most valuable, not just on the field, but off the field as well. I know the Heisman voters don't necessarily care about cultural fit and what they do for a program, but Pavia has put Vanderbilt on the map to the point where they got another 5-star coming in, and I don't think they flip Gerhard Curtis if Pavia doesn't have a hand in it and say, hey, you could be like this guy here in Nashville.
Well, Julian, I'll say this. I know we didn't really get to see Julian Sayin before this year, but we did get to see Fernando Mendoza, who is, for some reason, I guess just because of his go route, go ball at the end of the Big Ten championship. We got to see a season of him on a team not like Indiana, not like Ohio State, over at Cal last year. And I mean, I never thought he was amazing. And this is no disrespect on Vanderbilt or anything, but I feel like the resources around Cal and what Mendoza had to deal with last year is kind of like what Diego Pavia had to deal with this year. Now, Cal didn't have an Eli Stowers or anything like that, but I still think we've seen a year of Fernando Mendoza on a team where he could have had a Diego Pavia-like season, and he didn't.
No, that's completely correct. And look, that Big Ten championship game this year was very hard fought.
Yes.
Right. And it was from an entertainment value, it was great just because it was close. But I didn't come away from that game saying either one of those guys is like clear cut the best player in the country.
Right.
And if we're really talking about the Heisman as a body of work for this season, I don't think Mendoza gets the Heisman off of one throw to the sideline he had to make that the other two quarterbacks probably could have made in any given scenario. You know, I didn't come away from that saying that he is the overwhelming favorite. Now, what they've done at Indiana is awesome, right? Like they are clearly the number one seed in the playoff for a reason. But when you talk about the body of work and what not only Pavia impacting the game with his arm, with his feet, and just to get even Vanderbilt in the conversation to where the college football playoff committee says, "Oh, get out of here. Like, you are the pest." Like, that's a testament to what Diego Pavia has had to do. So it's funny, you know, he was here in Nashville couple days ago. He was at Dick's Sporting Goods holding a Special Olympics shopping spree for athletes.
Cool.
And we talked to him there, and he said, "Yeah, you know, I'm excited to go to the Heisman ceremony. I'm finishing up, you know, putting the final touches on my Heisman speech." So he's already got it in his mind that
he's on
gonna,
brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you love about college football. I asked Reese Davis when they were here for College Game Day a couple weeks ago for the Missouri game, and I said, "Is Diego Pavia like everything? Like, is he college football in a nutshell, basically?" And Reese Davis says, "Yeah, like the zero to hero story. He's kind of like the swashbuckler, you know, the Captain Jack Sparrow of college football. The pride he takes in taking a maybe a bottom dweller program to the top. I mean, the story is everything you want. I just think that when it comes down to it in that vote for the Heisman ceremony tomorrow, maybe people aren't putting that into consideration when they're doing their ballots. So I hope it does, but we'll see."
Yeah, final Pavia question for you, but this is actually springing forward to his NFL prospects. He's got one game left against a really good defense in Iowa coming up this week, and then he's got the Senior Bowl coming up later next month. What can he show over the next maybe 1 to 2 months on the football field, and then beyond that over the next 3 to 4 months in interviews and whatnot, to show that he is an NFL quarterback? I think that his comp reminds me a little bit of Baker Mayfield, a little Johnny Manziel. Both those guys able to parlay that into being first-round picks. We've seen how their careers have gone. But what do you think Pavia can do between now, the ReliaQuest Bowl, the Senior Bowl, and beyond?
Sure. Yeah. You know, Iowa is kind of like the perfect matchup to have one last exclamation point on a great college career, because like you mentioned, they're going to want to make this a rock fight, and Vanderbilt is going to want to go up and down the field. So if Diego Pavia obviously has a great performance there in the ReliaQuest Bowl, and then, you know, in the Senior Bowl as well, you could certainly springboard that into getting, you know, interviews and camp invites and all that stuff. I wouldn't put it past, knowing how determined this guy is and how he just is not going to take no for an answer, that he doesn't find himself, even at the very least, on a practice squad somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, I think he could certainly add value. Heck, I look at the Titans right now, and I'm like, you know, I'd love to have Diego Pavia on the practice squad, being an absolute pest, because, you know, when you're a practice squad quarterback, let's say, for example, you are a lot of times going to be the dummy quarterback for that other team, and he not only can throw, but he can run, and be perfect for that in practice for an NFL team. So it's so funny because after one of the performances he had this year, somebody was in my mention saying he'd be great on like the Birmingham Squadron or whatever.
Birmingham Stallions.
Yeah,
Stallions. Yeah, like I've seen enough. He is the perfect quarterback for that. But
the CFL.
You know, all jokes aside, I certainly could see him kind of willing his way onto an NFL roster. That's for sure.
Julian, last football question before we move it over to the basketball team. With the SEC releasing the schedule yesterday, what did you make of that schedule? And because I think what Clark Lee is going to do is he's probably going to start Jared Curtis right away next year. How do you think that fares for his development?
Well, welcome to the SEC, Jared Curtis. That's all I got to say. Because, you know, I do think the non-conference schedule is manageable. Obviously, NC State is the big one, but they're all home games, right? But you got to go to Auburn. which is going to be tough. You got to go to Georgia, and you didn't have to play them this year. And then the saving grace is that you do get Alabama and Tennessee both at home.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've seen, anything can happen when you play either of those teams over the last couple years. Now, I agree with you. I think Jared Curtis, you don't bring him in not to be a starter.
Right.
However, I would expect them to maybe delve into the portal and maybe get a veteran QB as a backup, because you're going to have it just in case, because there's no sure thing, even with a 5-star
Just look at
quarterback
Syracuse this year.
Yeah. Right. There's no surefire bet that he is going to be ready right away. However, I will say that Austin Peay and Delaware game are perfect games to maybe throw a young quarterback in there, throw stuff at the wall, and see what sticks. Now, we've seen Jared Curtis here as a Nashville kid, obviously, and the guy reminds me of like a Josh Allen, Matt Stafford in high school.
Wow.
I mean, the kid is great size, can run, unbelievable arm, and has different arm angles as well, which, as we saw, helped out Diego Pavia in that weird kind of offense that they like to run, where he uses his feet and his arm. But it's going to be tough because you have Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, all on the schedule, and some of those games are away. So there's certainly going to be growing pains. But I do see if he pans out, and if he's as good as we think he is going to be, there is certainly a path for 6 wins there and a bowl game opportunity.
Well, and I think there's definitely a prove-it game in Athens, because you know he just flipped from Georgia, so he's going to want to be like, this is why I flipped right here.
Juicy. Absolutely juicy, that's for sure, because he's gonna feel the wrath of the dog fans in that game. That's for sure, assuming he is the starter.
What's the saying? Kirby Smart schedules the teams that
where players go. Yeah,
I mean, this was kind of handed to him. But.
Exactly.